Hargreaves, chance for Torquay! Chris Hargreaves, the captain! If he stays onside, Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sills!
Hello and welcome to part 2 of this week's Gull'S Eye View, sponsored by Galaxy TQ. I'm joined by Tom.
Good evening, guys.
Joined by Chris, and this week we're very lucky to be joined by Nick of TUST. Nick, explain about the TUST to those who don't know and what is kind of going on right now.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me on to what hopefully is an award-winning podcast.
Yes.
Where do I start? Gosh, TUST is the Torquay United Supporters Trust. We are the only official supporters group of the club.
Yeah.
Some of you may know that the club has tried to set up a supporters club itself. I think under this current regime, they've tried at least twice, and it's never got off the ground. So we are the only group that represents not just our members, but all the Yellow Army. And last week, we issued a statement basically discussing the running of the football club at the moment. None of us on the board of TUST are able to sort of comment on the football side of things, although individually we all have our own opinions about what's happening on the pitch at the moment. But that's not TUST's remit to talk about the football team itself. We're actually talking about the running of the club. And in the last, I don't know, probably 6 months, maybe longer, we've been monitoring social media, the Three Fans forums, and there's certainly, in our opinion, a growing concern amongst long-standing supporters of the club about the manner in which the club's being run. If you recall, back in 2016, when Clark Osborne bought the club, we're all very grateful to the fact that he did so. Otherwise, I guess there would be padlocks on the gates and we wouldn't have any football club to support. So yes, okay, we thank Mr. Osborne for writing the cheques, but ploughing in all the money that he has been ploughing in isn't the sole reason for running a football club. The football club itself needs to be sustainable, and we at TUST are very concerned about the long-term future of the football club. Back in 2016, Mr. Osborne made several promises, and being a retired headmaster, and parent of 3 children, I was always told, if you make promises, you keep them. So we were promised a 5-year plan. We were promised a local board of directors. We were promised an academy to produce players who would then end up going through into the first team. And we were promised a new stadium. So, and also another promise was that we would get out of the National League. Well, okay, they kept that promise.
We've done that anyway.
But went in the wrong direction, of course. So there's a lot of promises that were made which haven't been kept. And trying to discuss anything with the owner is absolutely impossible. We've tried on several occasions to ask for an interview with him. I know for a fact that the local MP, Kevin Foster, has tried to meet with Mr. Osborne. I'm aware that BBC Radio Devon have tried, the Herald Express have tried, and it's just a brick wall because the 2 directors who run the club on behalf of Mr. Osborne refuse to allow anybody to get anywhere near him, which is a great shame because in a decently run football club, the Supporters Trust works usually alongside the football club and relays information or concerns of supporters to the club The club then answers those questions, and the trust can then return and give the answers to those who are asking the questions. None of that happens at Torquay. I've been a supporter for 50 plus years. I probably had a season ticket sitting in the same seat in the family stand for about 35 years. And I can certainly tell you that in the early days, certainly under Mike Bateson, supporters were valued. We were almost treated as guests. Now we're an interference. For people who want to, they can't pay money on the gate to get in. If you don't buy a ticket before the day of the match, then there's £2 added extra to buy it on the day. There's no encouragement to allow, say, at this time of the year, anybody who's on holiday who decides that maybe on a Saturday going to the beach isn't suitable because the weather's not good, and they want to go to watch the football match, and then turning up is really difficult. It's really hard for them to try and get into the ground. I mean, what business tries to deter someone from wanting to pay money to go to the gate?
Not everyone's online based as well. That's the thing. When they did the £2 thing, I never understood that, because a lot of people just go, "Oh, I finished. Well, yeah, let's go up football," and then to have it in your face that no, you're paying £2 more because of that, it just makes no sense business wise, and it's the whole.
I think as much as anything as well, and we've discussed this before, Nick, is that the bit I don't understand about it, I'm sure there is in their own mind a reason for it. And there must be a justification, whether it be a cost justification, whatever it might be. I have absolutely no idea. But it'd be nice to know what that is, as opposed to just being told this is the way it is, and you know, no one understands it, as opposed to this is the reason why. Then you can agree with it or disagree with it, as opposed to not having a clue.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that not a lot of people think of TUST as being a suitable vehicle on which to sort of join. Although we do have a growing membership, certainly in the last 2-3 months, our membership's increased. We've now gone over 400, which doesn't sound a lot, but actually, when we compare it with Plymouth and Yeovil, for instance, we have more members than either Plymouth or Yeovil have. And if you recall back in like 20 years ago, when Exeter City were going through a terrible time, their supporters trust only had about 400 members at the time, and then when things went pear-shaped, overnight thousands joined. So they ended up with sort of like another 2,000 almost within sort of like 36 hours of sort of disaster taking place. So and I understand that a lot of people would say, "Oh, TUST, oh, what's the point of them? Here they are whinging again." Making a fuss about something that isn't to make a fuss about. I mean, because I understand that a lot of, say, typical Torquay United supporters are only concerned about what happens on the pitch, which is fair enough. And if it was a winning side, no one's bothered about how the club's run. Currently, okay, we've got off to a sort of uncertain start in National South. It's not great, but it's not terrible. But I would question, you know, being in the league for a start.
Again,
nobody, to my knowledge, who runs the football club has ever apologised to say sorry about being relegated last season. Not one person who runs the club has said sorry, and we'll make up for it. No one said anything like that, and I think that's where supporters such as myself rather lose faith in those who are running the club.
That was the problem. That was the problem sort of towards the beginning of the year, especially. It just felt like the whole club were kind of in denial of relegation. It never appealed to them that, oh, we could be going down a division here. It was all very, you know, everything's fine, everything's fine.
But it's almost like a dictatorship almost, isn't it? Like loads of bad things happening. It's all smiling and happy.
And then when we did get relegated on the last day, it was kind of like, oh, they posted something, but it was kind of like, you know, the stuff you would want to hear your owners say, you know, we'll go again next season and aim for promotion. But, you know, there was a lot of, did that message really come from Clark Osborne? Was that really something that he wrote?
No.
Or was
Nick, just a question, I guess, if not anything for me, just on the dealings you have had, because I mean, I read the statement with great interest, just as I know a lot of Torquay fans did, that was released last week, and I think it was the most pointed statement that the TUST have sent out yet, in that it's not just about it wasn't a whinge fest, as the phrase that you used. It was more around actually calling out direct things, as you said, exactly the same. You know, I'm a parent, I have 3 young children. It's one of the basic rules of parenting that you don't promise something that you're not going to do. So if you promise it, you've got to make damn sure that you follow through on it. So I liked the fact that what you're actually doing is it's not about whinging and moaning, but actually saying, well, look, actually, you said you'd do this. You need to explain why you haven't done it. From the dealings that you've had, admittedly, you know, in the statement you said that, you know, there used to be, you know, very basic engagement, whether it be through the chief executive or through, you know, whoever is there. What kind of feel have you had in terms of how they are prepared to engage with the TUST, with supporters, and kind of what kind of feeling have you had from them?
Well, currently we're basically sidelined, and I think the current phrase is cancelled. You know, as I said in the statement, I spent the best part of a year last year with 5 meetings with the 2 directors, trying to re-establish contact between the club and the TUST, and succeeded. Eventually, we had a meeting back in March, but then Clark Osborne.
And how was that meeting? How was that meeting?
It was fine. It was very amicable. We met with Dom Mee, the supporter liaison officer, and Joe Harris, who looks after diversity at the club. So that was very amicable. But in between that and when the next meeting was scheduled, which was for May, Clark Osborne issued his statement about explaining that the club was going to remain full-time in National South, and 1 or 2 other comments. And we issued a statement to sort of reflect what he'd said. And then the next thing I know, I get a phone call the night before we're due to meet at Playmore to say it's off. It's cancelled. I was actually promised.
For what reason?
That the meeting would be rescheduled, but that never happened. And it's, I think the actual word is cancelled. I know when I'm in the ground and the directors spot me, then they look the other way, and I'm treated as, I don't know, I'm not quite sure how, but it's very discouraging, and it's very unnecessary, and it's really difficult to explain to those who I mentioned earlier, who really are only concerned about what happens on the pitch. There's a lot of people who turn up at Playmore every other week who just go to watch the football. They're not bothered about the politics that might be going on in the background, which is fair enough. I understand all that. But, you know, if the Trust doesn't sort of dig its heels in and make a stand, then no one's going to, and we'll just be ridden over roughshod by Clark Osborne and those he puts in charge to run his football club for him. Because, you know, he's explained that he'll pay the money, he'll sign the checks, but he entrusts the running of the football club to his chief executive and the other director, and they are solely in charge of the football club. I mean, the other thing which I think is really important to make a point about is there is no proper academy at Torquay United. There is no pathway for a youngster to go through. I mean, they go through the motions of having this under-18 side. There hasn't been a single player has made it through to the first team, although over the last few years they've given professional contracts. I mean, there were 2 lads who got professional contracts last season, who I thought were probably quite reasonable potential.
Alex Moyes is the best.
They were given free transfers at the end of the season, and they're gone. This young lad, Callum Thomas, he's probably never ever going to play in the first team unless there's a dire injury crisis. He's probably going to go out on loan at some point soon, I would imagine, especially as the manager's talking about bringing in 4 loans soon. When the EFL...
He was on the bench on Saturday, ironically.
Yes,
because
there were no other players.
Else.
I think it's a shame because, you know, if you look at the Exeter City model, and I know a lot of people say, "Ooh, Exeter City," but if you look at the Exeter City model, I mean, you know, they have a fantastic academy. Okay, they're a football league club, so they get more funding because of it. But, you know, they can produce players, a lot of whom actually came from Torquay in the first place, and are selling them for significant sums of money. Why can't Torquay United end up doing that? I mean, when I first started watching them, they had a reserve side that played in the Western League.
And that's the point. And then
no
we did have
reserve
10 years
side.
ago.
There's no. I mean, even I was looking on Twitter this morning. Even Weymouth have an under-23 side.
Yeah.
Where's Torquay United's under-21?
And that would support Gary Johnson as well, because if he has a reserve team, you can get fringe players' fitness in those games, so they can nurse them back from injury.
It's interesting, Nick, actually, of those statements that you mentioned earlier and then was in the statement, I thought that one when he took the club around the academy was probably the most dangerous, if that's the right phrase, because I think actually the realities of the funding, which exactly is the point you just mentioned there, is until you're a Football League club, you can't afford it. You have to put all of your finance and your budget towards your first team, which I guess now is even more important. So something along the lines of, we want an academy, we want to invest in the area, we want to bring the best youngsters through, let's get in the Football League and make it viable, would have been a far more sensible comment, because once you've said it, haven't you? And then actually from then you can be held accountable, which is exactly what the statement was trying to make. And actually, as a National League club, I think it's how many National League clubs have effective academies that produce players that they sell and they use, not that money because of that funding deficit.
Well, here, look, this is Mr. Osborne's statement in 2018, where he says, the major success, in my opinion, is the reformation of a youth system and the start of building a strong, sustainable academy. It forms the backbone of future sustainable success. And he said that in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. Go on, Sam. No, I was just going to say, I think, sure, the pandemic changed a lot of stuff in terms of budgets and finance in the football world, like it did the world full stop. But like I just said, that those comments are really great, and it's almost it feels like, all right, what do people want to hear? I bought this football club, not really sure what I'm going to do with it. Right, what do people want to hear? They want to hear promotion, they want to hear academy, they want to hear local directors. Right, let's say all that, and then but it almost feels a bit rushed, because unless you're actually going to do it, which 6 years later tells you hasn't happened, you're held accountable to what you've said, and it's why it's all dangerous stuff, isn't it? And if you then don't push through on it.
Well, this is the point.
And finally, there's the whole match day experience around Torquay. It's just common sense. Even if these things are happening, at least just make the experience a bit nicer. It's just, they're meant to be business people. Just the food side, that the price is going up. Just everything. It's never like a welcome to the club anymore, like it used to be. It's just you just stared at almost, like, as you said, Nick, it was like a nuisance, and that whole thing needs to be improved. But there we are. I mean, thanks for joining us, Nick. That's really important. I'll leave description and go on, Tom.
I just have one more quick question. Dom, who normally records with us, can't be here tonight. He's asked me to ask you, Nick. As Torquay United supporters, just in a nutshell, really, why should a Torquay United supporter become a TUST member if they're not already? I mean, I've been a TUST member for years now. I put my £2 a month in, and why should, especially now, Torquay United supporters, why should they be a part of TUST?
Well, I think probably the easy answer is to say that as our numbers grow, the more strength we have to question the club and how it's run. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have increased our membership quite significantly in the last 2 or 3 months. We would love to continue doing that if we could. But questioning the club isn't just our only remit, because we do have a certain amount of money each year which we allocate to local charities and community work. We are supporting the clubs. Well, I say the clubs because it isn't actually the clubs. We're supporting the women's team by sponsoring 4 of their players, and later in the season we're actually going to be sponsoring a home match which is against Exeter City in February next year, which we hope will be played at Plainmoor. So we do lots of other work besides. We're also recently we're working with a local charity called Step One, and they're starting what's called Torquay Wellbeing Walks, which are starting on the 1st of September. We're helping to promote that. It's to provide a walking environment for those who are suffering from mental stress and need to talk to people on a walk. It's a proven fact that when people get out in the fresh air and walk a bit, they can talk about their problems to someone they've never met before. And we're helping to promote that as well. So we do lots of other work besides questioning the running of the football club.
That's great. No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, Nick. Thank you for watching this week, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Here's Hargreaves, chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. If he stays offside, Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sells.